Yo, what is going on, guys? This is Loki. In this video, it's going to be quickly talking about the best builds for Loki. So all the builds that I create are based on practicality, affordability, and of course damage. They're not just based off of a whim, they're based off of the calculator that I use. For instance, if I do 46 damage, the calculator shows 46 damage. So everything is based on mathematics, not just based on like, oh, I feel like this is a good item, so I build it. So the first thing you want to do for Loki jungle is you want to go Boomba's Dagger into Hand of the Gods, and that's it. Your first back should be Transcendence. Now, usually, we're in a meta where, well, for Loki, you want to rush to level 20, and if you're just gonna be focusing on hyper farming, you might as well just build Trance in the early game just to stack it. I'm not saying Trance first item is good, because it's not. It's 2600 gold for only 40 power. That's pretty bad, and you don't even get the cooldown reduction until 50 stacks. It's not great, but because Loki sucks in the early game, and because you're not playing Erlang Shen or any of these cheese characters who strive off the early game, you're aiming for the late game. So you're just going to completely throw everything off the table and focus on the late game. You might as well build Trance first item. After that, you want to go Hydras into Crusher or Brawlers. So look at the enemy team. If they have healers, you go Brawlers. If not, you can go for extra damage, get Crusher. After that, you want to go Dominance. Now, there's an argument here. Dominance versus Heartseeker. Heartseeker sucks. It's 2900 gold and it does less damage than Dominance. That should tell you a lot. Why? Because this item's been nerfed constantly since season 5, so it's a pretty bad item now, unless you have like a million abilities or something. After this, you want to get your Boomba's Hammer. This is typically around level 20. And your last item should either be Titan's Bane or Serrated Edge, whichever you prefer. It really doesn't matter. Titan's Bane is more initial damage, less utility. Serrated Edge is more is 100 less damage than Titan's Bane, but it gives you 7% movement speed, which can be helpful if you value do you value 100 damage or 7% movement speed? It doesn't matter, you choose. Something you'll notice with all my builds is that, with the exception of Transcendence, notice that everything is in order. 2300 gold, 2400 gold, 2500 gold, and then whatever Boomba's is, and then 2600-ish gold, right? Notice that this is practical. It's cheaper in the early game and mid game, and it transitions into more expensive items as gold is increased when the game gets later and later. And by the way, this is for Conquest. I should put that in the title, but Conquest. Now that's for Loki jungle. That's the best build you can possibly go on Loki jungle. Now for Loki solo, it's a little different. Tier 2, you rush tier 2, you go Gauntlet tier 2 item, and you get 2 health potions and Hand of the God. And you always buy Hand of the God when you back. Now, people are wondering, why do I build Hand of the Gods? Hand of the Gods low for Loki solo is because it helps you confirm your blue. So let's say you get invaded, you go to your blue, you take it, because, you know, there's no immediate burst damage in the early game, so you can actually wait for the health bar to go to 199 or less, and then you press your key and you instantly destroy it. You pick up the blue buff and you stealth out before the warrior kills you, and because the warrior used most of the abilities on the blue buff, you can actually just get away for scot-free unless the enemy jungle rotates, but that's just really unfortunate. Basically, you get Hand of the God to ensure your blue buff. The worst case scenario, you lose 66 gold. I think you sell this for 33 gold. Best case, you get to keep your blue. First back, you get Soul Eater, obviously. Then you go into Transcendence, you go into Hydras, Crusher, Dominance. Actually, I think here you would go Boomba's Hammer, and then you would go into Dominance, and then you sell Soul Eater for, again, Serrated or Titan's Bane, which I would prefer. Solo lane is the same build as jungle. The difference is you have to build Soul Eater in the early game to ensure you have some sustain. This allows you to clear the wave. Let's say a Bologna is attacking you and Osiris is attacking you. You don't care. You group the minions up. He's hitting you. You just clear the wave. You're full health, and you just stealth out. Soul Eater just allows you to clear a wave without too much harassment from the Soul Laner. Around level 7 to 9 is when you'll have it maxed stack, depending on situation. And after around 7 or 9, you can just ignore the Soul Laner and freely farm, and he can just do nothing to you because he's building defense, so he's gonna do tickle damage. Okay, as for actives for Loki, you always buy beads in the jungle or solo. You're not going to go blink in the jungle because you're trying to play safe, so get beads. Your second active is going to be blink or Aegis, and yeah, that's that simple. Now let's talk about the things that are controversial or whatnot. So as I again mentioned before, Heartseeker is actually worse than Dominance. Heartseeker is 400 more gold than Dominance, but it does less damage than Dominance because Loki is an auto canceller, not an ability based hero. So you don't want to build Heartseeker on Loki anyways. Even if he was ability based, I wouldn't build it because he only has 3 or 4 depending on, well, I wouldn't use your ult aggressively, so I would just say 3 abilities. He's not Uller, he's not characters you can, like King Arthur can just spam 6 abilities and benefit from the passive. So do not build Heartseeker on Loki ever. Aeronite on Loki doesn't really make sense. So you could say rather than building Trance, you go Aeronite, because that's Trance and Aeronite are the same item, except you're losing 30 power and you have no mana, which is the key points for Trance. Aeronite, unfortunately, forces you to ult in, and that's kind of stupid on Loki. So yeah, don't buy this item. Bloodforge on Loki seems good in theory, but you have to replace Trance with this, which means you have no mana, you have no cooldown, and because you go Boomba's Hammer, you kind of need Transcendence, because you're just gonna run out of mana very quickly. Even with Trance, I almost ran out of mana. It's pretty nuts how Boomba's Hammer just kind of slurps your mana up. So Bloodforge, not good. You have healing from Blood Boomba's Hammer, so you don't need the sustain from Bloodforge. The passive shield kind of sucks. 400, that's really nothing. That's just barely a Hunter auto. It's not that valuable. I wish the shield was more potent, and I wish it kind of gave anything else besides lifesteal, but it is what it is. Okay, so let's talk about the glyphs. So this item right here, Jotun's Cunning, it's not good on Loki. It's 25%. 25% is valuable on a big number. It's not valuable on a small number. Loki's stealth is pretty short, especially with Boomba's Hammer. So the 25% off of like 3 seconds is not that valuable, as well as it doesn't really do anything. It's not great. I wouldn't, and you can't even fit Jotun's Wrath in this build. You would have to swap it out entirely, and I did, and it's way less damage than Transcendence, and it's not valuable. I don't value this item. We're not in season 8 and 9 where you rush Jotun's Wrath anymore, so it's like it's not, maybe in the future, but as of now I don't think it's valuable. Jotun's Vigor is fun if you're running the vampire Loki build, which consists of Blood Force, Soul Eater, and Jotun's Vigor. It's pretty funny, but it's not good because anti-heal exists. The movement speed is actually the biggest value of Jotun's Vigor. The amount of times where Jotun's Vigor activated and I actually just like W keyed out, that was really fun, but it's not that practical because you have Boomba's Hammer, which allows you to get your Vanish up quicker, which is 35% speed. I don't think it's that valuable. Okay, so the heavy execution, people have been talking about this. No, it's not good on Loki. It's the same reason you don't build a stone cutting sword on Loki. Why? Because the passive doesn't work on Loki. Loki is a 3-shot character, meaning you only benefit from Executioner after the second auto, which means your 1 damage, your ult damage, your 2 damage, whatever, does not benefit from Heavy Executioner until after 2 autos. And that means you want Loki to be a boxer. This is a good item on characters who box. Loki's not a boxer. Loki's stealth goes in, 3 hits you, and gets out. That's it. The only value you're getting from this is the 3rd auto, and that's it, which is not valuable. You do not build this, especially when you build percent pen on Loki. A lot of you guys don't understand how pen works in this game. Long story short, there is ignored pen and then there's percent reduction pen. Those two don't mix. You don't mix percent ignored and percent reduction. For instance, if you build Transcendence or Hydra's Lament, which you always do on Loki, that gives you 10% ignored pen, right? 10% works better off of a bigger number, not smaller. Heavy Executioner reduces that big number to a small number, meaning Hydra's Lament now ignores less armor. So it does not make sense. You don't build this on Loki ever. Malicious Deathbringer. So let's talk about, so this is the last item, right? Malicious Deathbringer. Crit on Loki is not viable since you I mean, you can go crit Loki jungle and just kind of aim for the late game, but there's too many. Okay, the main reason why I don't like crit Loki is because you're hurting your own teammates. Every hunter, pretty much most hunters, build crits. So when you're building your own crit, everyone's going to build Spectral, and when people build Spectral, you're not going to be hitting as hard. You're going to be resetting your cooldowns very quickly, but you're not going to be hitting as hard, and that's the purpose of Loki, to hit really hard. Pen Boomba's Hammer Loki is less cooldown than crits, but you deal true damage. Like you can't, there's no way to counter Pen Loki unless you just build raw defense, which mages won't, because they just won't. Maybe 1 defense item, but that's not enough. So crit is not valuable. It's a fun build, but it's not competitively viable. It's too RNG based. You rely on getting kills with rage to get the stacks, which means 5 assists or 5 kills. That's pretty hard to do in the early mid game as Loki. So I definitely do not recommend building crit on Loki unless you're having fun. Golden Blade Loki. I never actually tried this on Loki because on paper it doesn't make sense. Your 3 is Golden Blade. So like, why build it? So for Boomba's Spear, Boomba's Hammer is just better. Utility, way more valuable than extra damage. It's that simple. Mannequin Hidden Blade. Now this is talked a lot. It's pretty bad. It's fun, but it's really bad because if you get hit by anything during team fight, which you probably will, it's not gonna proc. Or if you miss or something like that, it's too much investment for something that can just be done with like Boomba's hammer, right? It's not valuable. And Mannequin Scepter is just a crappy item because you're not gonna have any sustain in the early game. It's just terrible. This is a bad tree for Loki. Eye of the Jungle is pretty nice. It's pretty nice. Seer of the Jungle is amazing because you can just be a walking ward, and when you have stealth, you can just stealth by anyone and just de-ward, and you're just a walking invisible sentry ward, and it's pretty nice. Unfortunately, the stats aren't that relevant. It's only 65 power. It's not a lot. Attack speed is not worth it, and the protection on Loki doesn't make sense because 35 procs on Loki doesn't matter. The passive is it's a no damage starter. It's a full-on supportive item on Loki. It was good when you were able to stealth under towers, but unfortunately they patched that, so yeah, bad item. Bluestone Loki, so you don't build this in solo lane because you are going Boombas late game. Like Bluestone Pendant allows you to clear faster in the early game, but it kind of sucks on Loki in the end game, so yeah, it's not worth it. You do damage over 2 seconds. Loki kills you in less than like 0.5 seconds in the end game, so what's the point of this passive? Especially when you cancel your 3, so like, who cares? Sigil and Execution, or Sigil and Warrior's Act, these are warrior items. If you're playing Warrior or Loki, as I said before, it's not worth it, so just, yeah, not good. Okay, so the actual last thing we're gonna talk about is Bruiser Loki. So I don't actually have a Bruiser build. I did try Bruiser Loki before. It's strong in the early game, but it falls off late game because the purpose of Loki is to do assassin things, and when you make him a bruiser, he can't really do that. You're giving enemy more time to fight you back, and you're also become more team dependent, right? You can't solo a lot of characters without some help of your team or support from your team. If you go full damage Loki, you can just pick someone off, and just who cares if your teammates are helping you or not. But if you basically, the tankier you go as Loki, the more reliant you are on your teammates, and that's not a good way to win games because you don't know your allies. They may not have communications, they may not understand how you're playing, and it's not good. Maybe in the competitive scene, probably like SPL, but I don't think Loki should just be a raw damage dealer. And at the end of the day, if you want to go warrior solo, you go warrior solo. You don't go Loki. Loki has low base stats, low health, low physical magical prots. You just go real warriors if you want to go tanky. Okay, so I think I covered everything in this video. I hope so. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please post it down below, but go ahead and use those builds. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be amazing. Just remember that all the builds I use is for auto canceling, which means after you get Hydra's Lament, like after 3 items, you're supposed to cancel your 3. So don't, if you are a person who cannot cancel your 3, I'm sorry. You can still use the build, it's just not as potent. So yeah, hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.